Senator Scott was on the show. That's what matters. And we asked him about this because Joy Behar, of all the people on The View, said, what he basically called into question whether Senator Scott knows really what it's like for black men in America, which was quite a thing to say. I think everyone picked up on it. Can we just go back, team, and remind everybody of his response on this show to what Joy Behar said?
Well, there's no doubt a white lady dressing up in blackface, giving a black man advice probably doesn't ring true in anyone's mind, certainly not my own. But more importantly, I find it offensive and disgusting and dangerous for a very different reason. I'm used to having the left attack me because the truth of my life disproves their lies. It is literally the dumbest, most offensive thing I've ever witnessed on TV to hear these millionaire TV personalities telling me how to live my life as a black man, but more importantly, suggesting to every child, stay in your place, follow my lead, or you too will reap the same harvest of Tim Scott or Clarence Thomas or any other conservative who dares to think for themselves.
So that was last Tuesday. We were off because of Memorial Day. It was last Tuesday he was on the show. Clay, I thought that was strong, but this, and we're glad that he got to say it here on this platform to all of you across the country. The View, I don't know, maybe The View got called out so much by their own audience on this one, or something happened. Or they just realized it was an opportunity for ratings. The View invited senators. Why don't they invite Clay and Buck on? That would be a show. It'd be a show if Liz Cheney came on here to talk to us. It would be a show if they had us on The View. I can tell you that. But here is Senator Tim Scott. Sitting down on The View. We wanted you to hear this. Clay and I agree. This is not a home run. This is a grand slam moment for him. Play it.
One of the things I think about, and one of the reasons why I'm on the show, is because of the comments that were made, frankly, on this show, that the only way for a young African-American kid to be successful in this country is to be the exception and not the rule. That is a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send to our young people today, that the only way to succeed is by being the exception. I will tell you that if my life is the exception, I can't imagine.
But it is.
But it's not, actually.
It's been 114 years.
Yeah, so the fact of the matter is we've had an African-American president, African-American vice president. We've had 2 African-Americans to be secretaries of the state.
And he keeps going. It's phenomenal.
We shared this clip. I'm sure it'll be up on clayandbuck.com if you want to go listen to it. So this is phenomenal, right? Because the message that Tim Scott is sharing is that the progress the country has made is massive as it pertains to race relations and also to opportunity in general. And one of the craziest things that has happened, and this is a big story, is in the wake of Barack Obama's 2 terms as president, 2008, 2012, race relations have collapsed in the last decade or so. A lot of different theories about why that might be. I'm sure many of you out there listening have theories. Mine is, Buck.
I was going to say, I don't think race relations have collapsed. I think the media pretends that race relations have collapsed. You know what I mean?
So
it's
that's
what
I'm getting.
right?
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you look at the data, the media has so negatively, I think, impacted our perceptions of race relations that many people do believe now. For instance, I believe it's a Gallup poll that came out. We talked about it on the show. Around the year 2000, something like 70-some-odd% of people thought race relations in the country were generally good, and about 20-some-odd% said race relations were bad. This is around 2000. This is 3 years ago. Now, over half of Americans believe race relations in this country are bad. I think the media is a big part of that. And I also think, Buck, my theory here for what happened was, you go back and look at 2008 Obama, it is America's such an amazing country that even I, a mixed-race kid from Hawaii, can get elected president. That was the message of 2008 Obama, okay? By 2012, there was more of a racial pitch to Obama's campaigning. By 2016, Democrats were all in on identity politics. So the lesson they took from Barack Obama's election was the only reason Obama won was because he was black. And therefore, we must have identity politics, whether it's Hillary going out there and saying, I'm with her, right? You're a woman. You have to support me because you're a woman. And then by 2020, Joe Biden, super old white guy, is arguing, hey, if you're not with me, you ain't black, that the Republicans will put you back in chains. Kamala Harris's entire choice was based on her being a black female. And they even made it explicit, Buck. Biden promised to put a black woman on the Supreme Court, something we've never seen before, based entirely on identity politics.
I would say that, first of all, it's just, it's kind of a theme today. People who say things that we all know to be true, you feel it, it inspires you, there's sort of a calm that comes over you, go, yes, that's right. And what Senator Scott said there on The View about the tremendous progress that the left effectively denies for black Americans and all Americans toward a meritocracy. In fact, what we have now is the left openly going against meritocracy, right? The left actually wants there to be a spoils system based on race, gender, but it's a spoils system against particularly white males. That's actually the system that and Asians, I would note. That's what they want for affirmative action in college. That's what they want for hiring, and that is the reality of America today. But put that aside for a moment. He's saying something that is true. Do I think that this goes back to our earlier discussion, are we going to see a major change in the black vote in 2024? Let's just assume for a second even Tim Scott was the nominee, or he's just able to have powerful messaging in the GOP all along. History would tell you no, that it's not going to happen at all. That said, there may be people of all, of different races, black voters, white voters, who just from hearing from a man like Tim Scott about the truth of America today, the Democrat moral blackmailing they engage in, the sort of moral demagoguery of, if you don't vote Democrat, you're a racist, that may be less effective. So that's the only way that I could see it from an electoral perspective, because the more people see this, the more they realize, well, what are they really talking about? What are they really saying when they're claiming that this country is fundamentally racist, and they've expanded the definition of white supremacy to include, anything in society that is unequal? What are they talking about? Basically, if their identity politics pitch is even a little bit less effective, that could have some effect. I don't see, though, a substantial change I shouldn't even say I don't see. There's no basis historically for it, but it might change this time around, the black vote shifting more toward Republicans. I mean, it would be great. But
I think it's an intriguing debate, Buck. So first of all, Tim Scott, a lot of what he says is similar to what Obama said in 2008. And The View loved Obama in 2008, and they try to call out Tim Scott. But here's sort of the existential issue at play. And I don't claim to know the answer, but everybody out there can think about this. How do you destroy identity politics? Right? Identity politics is a toxic cancer, in my opinion, in the American body politic, and it is entirely the foundation of the Democrat Party right now.
So I actually think that it's a function in part, Clay. I think it has to do with laws. I think you have to have, I think the Supreme Court decision that's coming in a matter of weeks here, which we haven't really talked about, will be a substantial step in the right direction, because what we have now is a system of, and this is from a Supreme Court decision, I can't remember if it was Alito or Roberts, one of them said, the racial spoils system that affirmative action has created, that has trickled down not just to college admissions, but also in hiring for corporations across America, in government grants that are minority specific. You have to eliminate these things as a matter of law, or else everything else we talk about just feels like rhetoric, because the system is in place to perpetuate the identity politics system that only benefits Democrats, because it is antithetical to Republican and conservative philosophy, which is we treat every individual as an individual created in God's image with the same rights, dignity, and worth as everybody else. No one's more, no one's less. The law cannot treat them differently. They don't
and
do
I
it
think implicit in the Senator Tim Scott and Nikki Haley candidacy, ironically, given that both are coming from South Carolina, is that they reject identity politics by exploding it. This would be their argument on some level. I don't know that they would make it explicitly, but it's hard to argue that Republicans are the party of white supremacy if, again, this would be part of the premise of their candidacy, if Tim Scott or Nikki Haley is on that ticket. Now, the challenge to me is that this is the essence of the race. Do Tim Scott or Nikki Haley, given that they're from South Carolina, change the electoral calculus? I'm not sure that the VP does. If Tim Scott, Buck, were from Arizona or Georgia or Pennsylvania, I would be like, the dude has to be the VP nominee, right? Same thing for Nikki Haley on some level, because they could put you over the edge and maybe in those states. But you're going to win South Carolina by 20.
But the most consistent voting pattern you can really find for any, if you're looking at race, age demographic, you're going to list the black vote for the Democrats stretching. I mean, does anyone want to guess what percentage of the black vote went for Gore in 2000 versus Bush? 90%. It is a 90-10 proposition and has been for over 20, I mean, longer than that. I'm just going back to 2000. But we have not found a way to break that. We have not found a way to change that dynamic. And I think it's hard as well because the Democrats realize that just, I mean, that's like them taking Texas and making it blue, right? Then it's game over.
Or 70-30, their entire campaign, their entire identity politics coalition disappears.
Oh, 80-20, they're done. But I'm just saying, historically, this has been absolutely impossible. And so to think that it will change this time around is going against. But can I point out, we should get some of the VIP emails. Then everyone's yelling at me. They're saying, so what if a primary challenge has never worked in history? Biden is the worst ever. I'm like, okay, guys, I'm just telling you historical examples. I mean, no one can predict the future. I keep saying this. I don't think I can. No one can. But if you look historically, it's been 50 years, and no incumbent president has ever lost a primary challenge.
I think it would. He would not lose, Buck. He would withdraw and blame health. But if the challenge was moving in a direction where it could potentially be successful, I think that's what would happen. But, man, this is Tim Scott going into the Lions' Den and basically rising up and dunking on The View. That clip is going to be everywhere.
A+, grand slam moment for Tim Scott on The View. Absolutely fantastic. So